Welcome to Vertex Point. My name is Ajara Ahmed Tijani. Today we're going to be looking at issues arising on the African continent. There are many issues, but the top of them is coup d'etat, which is becoming contagious across the continent. Of course, in recent times, there have been numbers of coup attempts and indeed the real coup. Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Chad, Sudan, the list is long. The point here is, what are the reasons or what are those factors responsible for this action? And like I said earlier on, analysts are saying that this is becoming contagious, is becoming a fashion from the military angle. Although what's going on in the world has really shifted the attention from the continent that's talking about the war going on in Ukraine, Russia invasion of Ukraine. But then it is something that we must talk about today. Now, to discuss this important issue, we have political analyst with us today and a peace ambassador in person of Omar Balogun. Welcome to Vertex again. We'll be right back. It really is a pleasure to have you join us on this show. Vertex Points is really glad to have you with us, Omar Balogun. Now, we're going to be looking at the recent African coup issues and prospects. Now, I'm going to be starting with this a very straightforward question. Now, what would you say account for resurgence of military coup? You know, of course, we've experienced it in the past. Of course, your country, Nigeria, have experienced it like twice or even more, but now it's becoming like a phoenix coming back again. What would you say is responsible for this?
Thank you for having me on this great channel. Number one, when we look at what has accounted for this coup in a recent time in South Africa, in the Sahel, and some part of the West Africa. Number one, you look at the poor political culture. Then you look at lack of fundamental support from the background, and also lack of civic knowledge, political decay, and a socio-economic factor. Those are the 5 identified factors that are actually responsible for some of this some of these ugly situations in those axes of Africa continent.
Okay, thank you so very much. Now, would you say this, the occurrence of coup d'etat is actually a lack of political will or failure to account for the promises made by leaders to the masses?
Well, likely, I think we can attribute this to the lack of leadership, across board. Because when you have a leadership failure, then some of these occurrences you keep seeing them because, basically, I think I can say it's just a lack of bad leadership, where there's no good governance, no policy direction, and all of that, and that is what the main problem, and that's what we are facing in other parts of the country, within this Africa continent at the moment.
Okay, so now let's get to the real matter. Now, we have to shift away a little bit from the fact that, of course, there's a loophole when we're talking about political will on the side of the leaders to actually deliver those promises given to the people, especially during campaign. Now, it has happened and there's no going back to it. Okay, so now the one that happened in Guinea, in Mali, and so on and so forth. Now, despite military support from world powers, and when I mention world powers, I'm actually referring to, of course, the West, European Union, the rest of them. Now, despite all this support in terms of militarization, the continent still grapples with insecurity and now coup. I mean, what do you say to that? And of course, given the fact that some people are actually saying that the so-called world powers are actually behind this coup, what do you say to this?
Well, each country is a sovereign state, so we are independent, and with the support of the military from foreign reasons, there are two things involved. You have to look at what is their interest in the military support. The military support, what is the interest, and also we need to look at the within the internal security. Is there any kind of any form of a betrayal? Of course, yes, and that is why defeating the insurgency, the insecurity that we are facing at the moment is because lack of political will. That's number one. The second thing is just that we need to look at what is the interest of those foreign allies who are saying they are willing to support us. On what aspect? Is it on the basis of our resources, or is it on the basis of humanitarian aspect of it? And if you look at some other aspect of it, you look at yes, we could have done better, but what is required in this African continent, it is not the bloody revolution. It's what we require. What we need is a political revolution. That is exactly what we should be working on, which has to do with the building a peaceful coexistence and unity and progress of our dear continent, our respective country. That is what we should be looking at, building a peaceful coexistence. And I think that's a key word. And we have several organizations. We have, we have the umbrella, the AU and the ECOWAS. Everybody is doing a different thing, rather than working together to achieve a common goal.
Now, a UN special representative for the region said this resurgence, particularly in West Africa, is often the consequence of political practices that are completely out of step with the aspirations of the population. Do you agree to this fact?
Absolutely. That's why this thing borders on leadership. And when you have a kind of leader who care less about the feelings and aspirations of a younger generation in the continent. And of course, you will see a lot of agitation. You see a lot of people who want to say, okay, they want to break out of the country. You see all kinds of building a different sect coming up from different angles, from different part of the country and the West Africa and all of that. So you have to look at what kind of politics are we playing and what kind of politics should we be playing, and which one that will match with the aspiration of every citizen of this country. You see that there's no price control. You see that the insecurity, yes, it's just a contemporary security challenges which are surmountable and all that. But I think it requires a collective of every young person and all to work together to make sure that we are out of those contemporary security challenges and all that. But again, it's largely based on lack of leadership. And when you have a lack of leadership, and I think what we should be doing, and in West Africa or an African country, we need to have an institution that borders on a leadership. We need to have an institute, that's saddled with the responsibility across the African continent, where whoever wants to be in the position of authority, you need to really go to that institution where you will learn on how to govern your people and how to provide a quality leadership for the younger generation and yet to. So these are the things that are really responsible for some of this insecurity across the board.
Now let's move on to the, let's shake the table a little bit. Now, the elephant in the house here is African Union. That's one of the biggest umbrellas on the continent. African Union and the Economic Community of West African countries, given the fact that this actually is taking place in recent times, especially in 2021 and then 2022. Now, it actually concentrated in West Africa. Now, African Union and ECOWAS, which has 15 member countries under its umbrella, imposed some modest sanctions. To what extent do these sanctions go, and what are the effects?
For me, I don't see any serious sanctions, meted on this coup d'etat and all that, maybe some of this country. Number one, do we have economic integration across the African continent? Do we have? Because every country crosses their border. For what? For what reason? If we say we are one Africa, how do we achieve the one Africa? The economic integration is one of the fundamental aspects that we should be looking at in this angle. Then when you pose a sanction, do we have we developed our cultural system? Have we look at our social interaction across the Africa continent? So when you are posing sanctions, for me, those sanctions are like just to deter other countries or other people who want to engage, who want to do such a thing. But again, the sanction for me is a reflection that every African country need to learn how to develop their local content on how to survive on their own without allying with other foreign countries and all that. Because this sanction again is that what did they benefit from other West African countries like Mali? What benefit did they get from other countries? From within the African country, because you have closed your border. So what does it benefit if you say you are imposing sanctions? Your sanction is merely I would just say merely just to protect the interests of the so-called leaders, so that they won't, the military in their other country will not come after them. That is what I could see on that on that sanction. But for me, if Mali want to get themselves together, if every other Africa need to get themselves together, we need to begin to look inward and develop our local content. We should be able to have a program that will be feed yourself, Operation Feed Yourself, so that at least we will be able to have a less dependence of the foreign aid or foreign loans, which has not helped us at all. So these are the things that I think we need to really focus on developing our own local content.
Until now, the international community has not, when I said not, I'm going to put it in capital letter, they have not really taken any decisive, or should we say bold steps against coup plotters in 6 African nations. What do you make of this?
Well, if you are talking about the international community, number one is that when the coup occurred, you could see the joy, the happiness on the part of citizens, which ought not to be. So if there are good leadership, if the people are being well taken care of, if the citizens are given the right, what is due to them, what we should be looking at, then there's no reason why the other, those international organizations or Western world will not impose sanctions on that kind of people too, because they know that things are not just done well in those assets. If you look at the Burkina Faso now, Burkina Faso too, he is also before the coup, the former president was actually looking at the third term. Why third term? Why tenure elongation? Why, and if you look at the chairman of African Union, which is a Senegalese president, he's enjoying the third term. Why? Why just sudden constitution amendment along the road? You were not the first person. And why sudden? So you see, these are the reasons why we will not be respected. And this is the reason why the African will not be respected in the eyes of Western world and all that. Because we need to do what is expected of us to do in a democratic system of government. Which has to do with, you have a tenure and you have a constitution. That rule of law is the fundamental. And those are rule of, the moment you break the rule of law, the fundamental of every citizen in the country, then you are also, on the same way with those who take laws on their hand. So that is why, for them not to have taken a sanction and all that, the world are so, there is no peace in the world at the moment. And what we should be looking at is, how do we restore peace? How do we create a harmonious relationship across the African continent and beyond? That is the most important thing. And recently now, what we are witnessing now, even in Europe now, we are seeing the war between Ukraine and Russia. So these are the things that, invariably we need peace in Africa. Let me just limit myself that in Africa we need peace. In Africa we need harmony. In Africa we need unity. And that is the only way this continent can actually grow. And if we look at all these things, honestly, for me as an individual, and maybe some of my other contemporaries, we need a unification in this African continent. We need unification. We need one Africa. We need one voice. We need economic integration. We need a cultural exchange. We need a social interaction, social, political, economy, and all of that. We need all of this. We need the old ones need to give the support to necessary support to the youth. So with all of this, we will have a peace across board.
Now, in Nigeria, which is Africa's populous nation, and of course your country, an upsurge in crime between farmers and herders coincide with kidnapping and violence in the northeast. Other incidents such as secession bid. Do you think coup could happen, by this means?
Well, we don't pray for that in Nigeria, and I can say, and I think we are very. There are a lot of let me say we are very resilient. We are not a violent people, and what we should be looking at, yes, there are clashes between a farmer and herdsman. I think that is almost fade out now. What is on the ground now is a kidnapping, banditry, and still Boko Haram in the northeast. And some of these things still bordered on the leadership and all that. And that is why there are various agitation from the east and the west, secession from the eastern part of Nigeria. And really, what is the complaint? What is the agitation? It's still bordered on the marginalization. They feel that they are being marginalized. And they are right. As a citizen of this country, they have the right to complain. And if they feel that, but what I just look at that is not we cannot achieve anything through violence. You can only accomplish anything you ever need in life is through peace, not the violence. And in politics and all that, it has to do with negotiation. And I think, so I will appeal to my brothers and sisters in Southeast and also Southwest also, but more important in Southeast, to look at the peace as a way of resolving conflict, to look at the dialogue as a way to move the country forward, to look at the various means around the table, because no war is settled on the battlefield. Every war still settled on the round table. And our government too, they need to be very much sincere in their dealings. We need to look at what are the agitations and not, and begin to work on those agitations. But yes, it cannot be achieved by violence. It can only be achieved in a peaceful way. And that is why we are advocating for peaceful coexistence. When there's a peaceful coexistence, some of this marginalization, segregation and all of that, I don't think religion is a problem in this country. Religion is never a problem because we get along easily. It is not our problem. It is just a conflict of interest and also greediness. That is our major problem in this country. So we never pray to have any coup, and we've been enjoying democracy since 1999, and we will continue to enjoy it. And I pray and I wish that our democracy will continue to grow stronger and indeed bigger, and so that we will be able to show more example to African brothers that yes, in this kind of issues you need peace. In this kind of issue you need unity, and that unity too, that's what we're advocating in Nigeria too. Let's come together so that only in the peace, that's where we can enjoy the dividends of democracy, and in the peace, that's where we can have a development infrastructure and all of that. And that's why we're looking at the youth coming together now this time around and form a very formidable team and be able to shape our political direction.
Now, Umar, what I would say is, of course, there's no two ways about this. What are the way forward for Africa? What are the way forward? Or should we just fold our hands like that and we keep watching this to continue to happen on the continent?
Well, the way forward for Africa in general is to believe that Africa is one continent, is to believe that Africa is one people, is to believe that our economy should be integrated. We should have a shared knowledge, shared prosperity, and with that, Africa will be a place that everyone in every other part of the world want to be. Not just coming here to meet our resources, but to come here to join the development stride that needs to happen in the African continent.
Now, political discourse, what informed it? You initiated that. What can you say about it? How do we use this platform to actually address these issues on the continent?
Yeah, political discourse movement is a group of like-minded Nigerians coming together, pushing the agenda of pushing the agenda of one Nigeria, pushing the agenda of building peaceful coexistence, unity, progress among Nigerian youth. We are, focusing on the youth because we believe that it is only us, it is only with the youth that can develop this country, because we are energetic, we are enthusiastic, we are virtually, we drive the societal transformation of every country. And that is why we are focusing on the youth, to make sure that, yes, we need to really work together. We need to move together. We need to do things differently now. And if you look at the whole thing, is that we are not telling the youth, when we say get involved in politics, it's not the politics of endorsement. It's a politics of involving elective position, so that we will be part of policy formulation and policy implementation of this country, not just by being appointed as SA or commissioner or minister. No, what we needed at this point in time, we need to be involved in elective position. That is my definition of youth being active in politics. It is not I support. It's about coming out, supporting ourselves. Develop a very robust plan on how to fix Nigeria. And just a few days ago, we have just developed African political discourse, to which we have different countries' young youth in the membership, where we have Malawi, we have South Africa. Yes, I am the continent president of the African Development, African Discourse movement. So these are the things that we are looking at, that all the youth across the continent, we must come together and be able to vie for elective position in the country and our continent, so that we will be able to, with this, by the time we work in unity, by the time we build a peaceful coexistence, I can assure you that we will occupy the political landscape of this continent. And that is our mission. Our mission is to make sure that, yes, we have all our contemporaries who believe in a one Nigeria, who have the capacity to lead, who have the needed, the skill to be in a position of leadership. We are pushing them to make sure that they occupy the necessary position where we'll be able to reposition our country into the right direction. And that's why we have also taken that same complaint to Africa continent too. And that's why we are already working on the strategic planning on how to launch African political discourse movement. So that is purely, peace. It's really peace and unity. That's what we want to believe. Because we look at some of our founding fathers, what they fought for is the peace and unity of Africa. The lives of Nkrumah, the lives of the Azikiwe Tafawa Balewa, the Nelson Mandela, Nyerere and all that. These are the things that they all fought for. That we need to build one Africa. We need to develop our unity. We need to take it to a next level. And that is what we have taken our responsibility to work on.
Okay, there's so much to talk about when we're discussing coup in Africa. Of course, the thing is becoming contagious, and other nations are actually copying, or should I say, studying how successful it was in other regions. So we don't know what's going to happen next. And African leaders need to brace up to really deliver the promises, campaign promises, before they get to the power. This is how far we can go on Vertex Point today. We'll be back again. Of course, there are many issues going on around the world right now. I'll be back with you. Remain blessed. My name remains Ajara Ahmed Tijani. Keep connecting the dots.